ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We are streaming out live at 21stcenturywire.com. We're also streaming out on X, on Rumble, as well as BitChute, Odyssey, Facebook Live. I think you can also catch us on some of the audio streams after the program if you subscribe to us on iTunes. So we'll be a little bit after the program, sometimes in the morning, actually, because the delay in getting our output there on the MP3 format. But nonetheless, whatever stream you're joining us on, thank you very much for tuning in. Got a couple of important stories we're going to be covering, obviously, in the first segment. And we're also going to be having a chat with some of our team members at ACR and 21 Wire. We'll be joined by Hesher, Ruckus, also Basil Valentine in the final segment of Overdrive. Got a few things to talk about, a few things to cover. Obviously, there's a couple of things. One of them is obviously the attack on Yemen. This has gained a lot of traction, also a lot of pushback for Donald Trump. We'll cover that in a minute. Also, of course, the tariff story. This is the big one. This is causing upheavals in the market. There's a lot of mixed takes on what's actually going on. We'll try to give a little bit of a taster here in the opening segment as to where things are on the tariff front. And if you've been watching us for the last couple of weeks, we've been alluding to some of these economic signals coming in, potential turmoil in the market. It's almost like Trump just basically pulled the rug out from under the economy this week. He says, don't worry, short-term pain, long-term gain, and it's going to make America great again. So we shall see how patient the public is, not just in the United States, also but globally as well. This is a global tariff regime. Some are calling it economic warfare. Call it what you like. We'll bring this up on screen here. So this is Trump doing a little bit of a Bibi Netanyahu kabuki theater demonstration with some kind of a graphic pasted onto a foam core board and says reciprocal tariffs. Interesting. He's got China, the European Union, Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, etc. His supporters are saying this is nothing more than art of the deal. Be patient, trust the plan. As QAnon always tells his followers, trust the plan. It's all going to work out in the end. It's an interesting chart. Take a closer look at this. It's got, for instance, China, tariffs charged to the U.S., 67%. USA discounted reciprocal tariffs, 34%. Where are these numbers actually coming from? That's a good question. Well, we'll take a look at where we think they might be coming from. There's been a little bit of pushback, really from Trump supporters. So sort of the MAGA crowd isn't completely happy with how things are going on this. So he's had a little bit of pushback from some of his own supporters. We'll look at one of those anyway. But that's just one example. And general theme here, Liberation Day. They're calling this Liberation Day when they announced the tariffs. Liberation from what? I guess, I'm not sure. Liberation from the world economy, liberation from the globalists. Nobody quite knows. It's a little bit vague. So personally, I think it's a bit early to be celebrating anything, much less a new national holiday called Liberation Day, when Smoot-Hawley tariffs have been enacted by this president. So we'll see. We'll see. Already the pundits are absolutely railing on Trump, and for good reason. The stock market saw probably its worst crash since COVID. Okay, that's pretty significant if you think about it. But nonetheless, let's bring on to the screen in a moment. We'll take a look at some of the pushback on this as well. One of the, I think generally I would say a Trump supporter in general, at least on domestic affairs, is Mike Adams, the health ranger. This is what he tweeted out. Basically criticizing Trump. He wasn't too impressed with the tariff graphic that Trump has unveiled here. This is what Mike Adams is saying. We'll bring this up on screen and have a closer look at it. We'll enlarge that so you can read that. Mike Adams, the health ranger, is a great account to follow, actually, on X. And Mike Adams is saying, now I'm getting really angry with the Trump team. They lied to us about tariffs, says Mike Adams. It turned out that their claimed tariff numbers charged by other countries aren't tariffs at all. They are trade imbalances, not tariffs. Now, other analysts, and this is just me adding in here, other analysts have pointed out on Twitter that you can actually access this more likely. They may have got these straight off ChatGPT, the Trump team. If that's the case, that's extremely worrying. Anyway, Mike Adams goes on here and says Trump's people are just calling them tariffs. They're not tariffs, which is wildly dishonest and deceptive. China isn't actually charging the USA a 67% tariff. If it turns out, see, it's all BS, he said. Here's the real way in which these tariffs were calculated. Mike's posted a sort of infographic here, basically trying to show how they came to this number. And so when you see the methodology on this, all of a sudden it looks very shoddy how they came up with these numbers. So it's a list of trade imbalances. It's not actually accurate as a tariff. So it's kind of false advertising. Some interesting comments here below, which you can read, but just go to Health Ranger. Obviously, this is just one particular take on this from one pundit, but we see a lot of similar types of criticisms of this by some of Trump's supporters. So it's hard to know quite what to make of it. I mean, and well, I'll talk about my take on this in general, but you have to understand, put this in perspective. This is at a time when obviously the stock market crash that was triggered as a result of this announcement. That was definitely a strong reaction from the markets on this. And JP Morgan has just raised its probability on a recession from 40% to 60%. So that happened also in the wake of this. So we had the market crash. JP Morgan's betting on a recession now. So a lot of the big banks in Wall Street, and this is important, look at which direction the global capital is moving. And right now, global capital is shorting the market, is shorting the economy. They're betting on a crash. So Donald Trump, through this shock therapy, which is supposed to make America great again, he's basically ushered in a potential recession, which looks to be like it may be on the way. So what does this mean in the long run? We could see the United States basically ease its way out completely out of the WTO, the World Trade Organization. And this is heavy hardball with Canada and Mexico. So what's going on here? Is this art of the deal, upping the ante to get leverage before signing a new type of a NAFTA agreement? Or is this trying to strong arm Canada into the arms of the United States? All that rhetoric about Canada becoming the 51st state, we heard a lot of that going on early. So, is that real? How much substance there is to that? I don't know. With the new Canadian de facto prime minister, his name's Mark Carney. He's Canadian. He's no Justin Trudeau. Let's just get that straight. Mark Carney is a high-powered banker. Okay, former governor of the Bank of England. It's one of the most powerful central bank positions in the world, behind the BIS and the Federal Reserve. Bank of England governor. He's Canadian, but he was Bank of England governor. Mark Carney. So he's now the person in the prime minister position in Canada. Obviously, they're yet to have a new election, but he's in there, and he's already met with President Trump. And Carney is no stooge. Okay, and it looks like he is a Canadian nationalist, so I don't believe he's interested in folding and joining the United States, as Donald Trump was alluding to. We don't know how much of that was just bluster and rhetoric, and also a bit of this deception and deflection by the president. There's a lot of that going on. All the talk about acquiring Greenland, the whole Panama Canal farrago, renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, which is a little bit strange. But a lot of this stuff, a lot of it is power play, politics, symbolic gestures, and big sort of headline grabbing incidents and activities by the incoming president. So here we have the real deal beginning. And this is going to be interesting. There's been other reactions to this, which we may look at as well. But what I'm looking at here is a lot of pundits are saying there's going to be a backlash. Okay, so this could, in theory, this type of plan could work. This type of action could work, but that's not really the question. The question isn't in politics. The question isn't whether it works or not. The question is, how long does it take to work? Because everything might work given enough time. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I can tell you this right now. This is not going to work in 6 months or a year. No matter how much money is flowing into the money markets at the moment, no matter how many people are seeking safe haven in sort of 10-year bonds and these sort of things. So I think for the old money know where to go. They know what to do here. So Trump's kind of thrown a bone to the old money. They're well hedged against any market tribulations like what we have this week. They'll be fine, the Warren Buffetts of the world. But what about everybody else? It's going to shake a lot of people, a lot of new investors. It's going to shake them right out of the market. A lot of them have basically lost a lot of money on the stock market because of this tribulation that Trump has unleashed this week. So yeah, the old money is going to be fine, though. They know where to go. They have read the tea leaves properly, and everybody else in Wall Street is probably making a fortune shorting a lot of stocks and shorting large sections of the market. So the vultures are doing well out of this. Probably a lot of buying up stocks cheap. So probably a transfer of ownership. You're going to see a lot of reconsolidation, transfer of ownership in some of the corporate S&P 500 companies. With as a result of this drop in the stock market, it's allowed other people to come in and buy up large swaths of various corporate sectors. So all of that's going on. So Trump knows, I guess, that it's time to look after the old money, and that's what he's done. So this is going to be, they say, a course correction in the economy, but the backlash, given if it takes too long, 1 year, 2 years, midterms coming up, this could fuel the fire, a recession or a double dip recession. If the fundamentals aren't there, could be more than a recession. That's going to fuel the fires of a Democratic Party insurgency in the midterms. Just on anti-Trump energy alone, they're probably going to gain some seats in the House. So you know what happens if the Democrats are able to wrestle control of the House of Representatives. We're going to have impeachments in the second half of his first term, and we're going to see a lot of gridlock and log jamming and things like that. So we'll see if it takes more than 4 years. This could be a major issue. The economy could be a major issue for the next election in 2028. So whether it's J.D. Vance or whoever is going to be the heir apparent of this legacy, this could be a significant event this week. This could affect the fortunes of the Republican Party and the Trump dynasty in 2 and 4 years. Now, the economists that we're looking at, that we're reading, are saying this is going to take something like 10 years before you're going to see any tangible improvements in the situation. Why is that? It's going to take time for the U.S. to rebuild its manufacturing sector. That's going to take time, to get the skilled labor back, to get the engineers back, all of the things that you need to build a manufacturing base. The United States doesn't have it. Okay, they've offshored it. They've spent the last 30 years, 40 years offshoring all of this during the globalization phase. But it's not just the globalization phase. This is the phase of the financialization of corporations, companies, and business. When it was, we did a transition in the 70s and 80s. I'm talking about Britain, Europe, but especially Britain and the U.S. And this is driven by some very crafty financiers, starting in Britain, a group of gentlemen known as the Mayfair set, who included Jimmy Goldsmith, James Goldsmith, Muhammad Al-Fayed, the owner of Harrods, also the father of Dodi Al-Fayed, who died in the car crash with Princess Diana. So Muhammad Al-Fayed, James Aspinall, I think Jim Slater, the accountant, and there's a famous documentary series called The Mayfair Set. And you can see this is when people worked out that the value was no longer in manufacturing things. The value was going to be made by IPOs on the stock market, share prices, and dividends. And then the rest you could offshore to cheaper labor markets globally to improve your bottom line, or just basically get rid of any non-performing assets. Well, that meant a total transformation of the British economy, and that was in the 70s and 80s. This caught on fire in Wall Street as well, and this is when you had this sort of change in mentality in what business was going to be about, and this really is dominated in the 90s and 2000s. So can the U.S. recover that? Can they rebuild it? How long does that take? They're going to have to import labor. They're going to have to incentivize, to coax, to draw in some of this skilled labor from other countries who are doing the manufacturing. So it's not something you can make happen overnight. It takes time. The investment isn't just going to be there, but more than that, the skilled workers aren't going to be there either. So in the meantime, you're going to see prices go up. This is probably going to cause a spike in inflation. That's also going to disturb the very delicate balance and the harmonization of our economy, both on the Main Street as well as in the corporate Wall Street sector. So this is not going to be an easy one. So this could be one of the things that really hurts Trump if they've gambled incorrectly. And just looking at some of the numbers, like we showed you here with Mike Adams, the fact that they're fudging numbers here, if this is a dishonest administration, and they have been lying about foreign policy and lying pretty badly, okay, there's been a lot of losses on the foreign policy front. It's only been 90 days. Okay, they got a big L in Ukraine. They fumbled that negotiations process. It's turning into a farce at the moment. They fumbled in Gaza with Netanyahu, the ceasefire agreement that Trump touted so boldly as he came into office, and everyone was giving him, applause for. A lot of backslapping for bringing peace to the Middle East. It turns out to be something of a how do we call that when you're in the desert? Turns out to be something of an illusion. It didn't happen. Israel is bombing Palestinians. A mirage. The peace process was a mirage. We think it was much more than that, actually. It wasn't just a mirage. We think it was an intentional deception. If you think about it, when they did this peace deal, when Trump came into office, and then if you notice, Netanyahu made this trip to Washington. It was the first sort of big political leader to show up to hang out with Trump. This was the beginning of February, and it looked like this was a peace deal, a ceasefire agreement. There was 3 or 4 phases. It looked like it had a chance, but they were cooking up something when Netanyahu was with Trump in Washington in February. And on around March 18th, Israel resumed bombing of the Palestinians, hitting people living in tents, refugees living in tents in Gaza, bombing them with American bombs, American planes, American satellite targeting, and so forth, American intelligence, just killing civilians by the hundreds and thousands, which they've been doing again, resuming the genocide, and then calling for ethnic cleansing. This is being heard from both Israeli and U.S. Voices in Washington and Tel Aviv. So there was no pushback when Israel violated the ceasefire. There was nothing from Trump, from Steve Witkoff, his Middle East envoy, supposedly, no pushback at all. So if the U.S. and Steve Witkoff, wagered so much political capital and worked so hard to get a deal with the Israelis, certainly if the Israelis broke the ceasefire, and not only that, blocked food, water, and medical supplies from getting into Gaza, okay, if they did that on March 18th, you'd expect the White House to go completely haywire and raising Cain over the fact that Netanyahu trashed this incredible a ceasefire deal. You didn't hear any pushback from Washington. What does that tell you? Think about it. Think about it. That means that this was not a ceasefire deal. What they did was secretly negotiate a pause in bombing to buy time for the United States to rearm the Israelis, the IOF and Netanyahu. That's all it was. And that's evidenced by the fact there was absolutely no pushback by anybody in the Trump administration. Okay, so that means they didn't want the ceasefire deal to begin with, and it was just a ruse. This was a ploy. Israel needed time to restock its troop levels, to get fresh soldiers in, and to get more bombs and missiles in, okay, because they basically depleted their stocks. That's it's the only way you can read this. I think that's how somebody who's not naive and maybe sane enough to look at the facts, which luckily we have quite a few great analysts that we're also following on X, who have pointed out some of these inconsistencies and quite obvious conclusions that there was never a ceasefire agreement. It was a public ruse by Trump and Netanyahu. Okay, so they basically lied. This was incredible. This Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump engaged in one of the most incredible acts of deception by a U.S. president in history, and it's a war crime. What they're doing, it's a war crime, and also to deceive the American public and the world in that way so dramatically is just unforgivable. And they should be both be dragged, Trump and Witkoff and anybody else involved, including Hegseth. They should be dragged into the International Criminal Court if there's any justice in this world, and be put on trial for war crimes just for this alone. And why not drag Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan and everybody else, and we'll bring Marco Rubio in as well. They're all the same. There's no material difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump when it comes to Israel. No difference. No material difference. A lot of rhetoric difference. A lot of talk. There's a big difference in the talk, okay, but nothing in the actual substance. The material outcomes under Trump and Biden are the same. And I could extend that as well to Ukraine. If we're going to be completely honest, not much of a difference materially. They're still at war with Russia. We're 90 days in. Trump promised on the campaign trail, I'm so great, I can end this war, and I'll pick up the phone to Putin and Zelensky, and this thing will be over in 24 hours. Well, it's almost 100 days. That's a bit longer than 24 hours. But again, we see a pattern with Trump, which is, and this is the cardinal sin in business, you never overpromise and underdeliver. But what Trump has been doing on every single point on the foreign policy front is he has been overpromising and underdelivering. And when it doesn't work out, he blames somebody for it. So that's the pattern of behavior with this president. So basically, if you underdeliver and the results are lackluster, if any results at all, you then scapegoat and blame somebody else. In the case of the Middle East, he's blaming the Houthis. And what does that mean for the Yemenis? Well, we can take a look. Okay, this is pretty shocking, which we're going to share with you here. This is what we have seen the last couple of days. I mean, if you remember the WikiLeaks collateral murder video, I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that was a real game changer in terms of public perception. As just to see the Iraq war through the eyes of U.S. soldiers flying in a Apache helicopter and then mowing down Iraqi journalists in the street, and then basically telling themselves and their CEO that they're terrorists. Okay, that's basically what Trump has done in Yemen. And this is the same Donald Trump that was saying we shouldn't be in Yemen, we shouldn't be bombing Yemen. He was all over Biden for this undeclared war of aggression in Yemen. Well, Trump has basically topped Biden, if that was even possible. So we'll bring this up on screen here. This is the Middle East Observer. This is a very good account, by the way. Middle East Observer. That's ME_Observer. And if you want to follow any account to get some great up-to-date coverage on the Middle East, this is a good one. This is a good one to follow. But this is what they're saying on this. And I'll show you the clip there's no volume to it. We'll show you the clip anyway. Trump bombs a Yemeni tribal gathering. The end of Ramadan, and promises this will stop Ansar Allah, the Houthis, missiles and stop them from blockading the Red Sea for Israeli ships. When you see people gathered in an organized circular manner like this, you know it's a tribal gathering in an Islamic country. When visitors come to visit the tribe, they are welcome in the same manner. This gathering is for Eid al-Fitr. Okay, and so now let's look at Trump's tweet. And the irony of this is Trump's website's called Truth Social, and he calls his tweets truths. instead of posts. Okay. This is so Orwellian. This is becoming so Orwellian. It's kind of turned into a joke. Okay. It's really hard to defend Trump these days because he's basically pulled a massive Obama. So he's taken up the mantle of Obama. Trump saying here at Real Donald Trump. I don't know if this is, yeah, this looks like his account on Truth Social. Yeah. These Houthis gathering for instructions on an attack. Oops. There will be no attack by these Houthis. They will never sink our ships again. Wow. There's two things baked into this, okay? Two things. But let's look at the footage. There it is. Who knows? Civilian tribesmen, farmers gathered in a circle. A U.S. drone flies over, sees them, claims that they're terrorists, and basically fires some kind of a bomb or Hellfire missile. There they are. Look at that. There must be, I don't know how many people there, 100 people, 50 people. Puts a crater in there, probably 10 feet deep. So, big tough guy, Donald Trump. He's a tough guy. Big warrior. Just killed a bunch of tribesmen. And then lied about it on his social media, saying that they're Houthi, what he's claiming they're terrorists, plotting some attack. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Even Obama wasn't this brazen and kind of unhinged and insane. So we have to be questioning the mental state of anybody that would put this publicly, especially a U.S. president. But I don't know. It smacks of desperation to me. Okay, that's just me. But this highlighted bit is interesting, and we'll go to break in a moment. Talk to our team at ACR on this. See what the guys think on this. But he says they will never sink our ships again. That's a little bit of a signal, folks, because the U.S. hasn't never admitted that any of their ships have been sunk by Ansar Allah, aka the Houthis. But Trump has kind of admitted it in this tweet here. That's interesting, isn't it? So they'll never sink our ships again. It kind of implies that a ship was sunk already. Either that, the person operating this account struggles with English and maybe didn't mean to say that. Either way, it's a bad look. It's a bad look. But I'm now very curious. And so we'll be looking for reports coming out of Yemen about a U.S. naval vessel that was sunk by the Yemenis. Of course, that would be blacked out in the U.S. press because the embarrassment would be too much to bear for the Trump administration. That sort of disclosure could really ruin Trump's term. It would really sink him. It'd be really embarrassing because obviously he's not allowed to lose. So that's interesting, isn't it? Well, this will make a great topic of discussion. This and the tariff wars with our guests on the other side. We'll be talking to Hesher, Ruckus, Basil Valentine. We're looking forward to this. So we're going to take a break in a moment. I'm Patrick Henningsen. This is the Sunday Wire.